Hi guys, last talk of the day, but a very good one. We're delighted to have Francesco from Superfluid. He's going to talk you through all things Superfluid and streams, and let's make him feel very welcome with a nice round of applause, please.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. I know it's the last talk of the day, so you must all be exhausted. But after this, we can all go and have a drink together, so it's all good. So I'm going to talk, as he said, about Superfluid, but really what I'm talking about is streams, right? And we consider streams the next big thing in crypto. They're a new primitive, which means they lay very low in the stack. And I'm going to try and explain what I mean with that and how we've implemented them to become a living part of the, let's say, blockchain ecosystem. So first of all, let's start with what is a primitive, right? So this word is thrown around a lot in crypto. When we talk about primitives, we're trying to find the smallest conceptual components of something, right? In the case of crypto, these might be things like tokens. If you look higher up the stack, like in DeFi, then even an AMM is a primitive, right? But we're trying to go as low down as possible. And for us, the basic primitive of the crypto space is the token, right? The token identifies some sort of value, right? And effectively, to create a token, you just need to give it a name and some sort of supply, right? As soon as there's one of something with a name, you have a token, right? And basically, this creation has enabled everything we know in crypto, right? Pretty much if you think of the crypto industry, it's all about tokens. And obviously tokens, coins, whatever, units of value with a symbol and a supply, right? So this is our most basic primitive. And what this does is it gives people ownership, right? So balance is the most basic primitive of tokens, right? You feed an account and it tells you their balance. So effectively, this is how we define ownership, right? This is like literally what ownership means. It's when you call the balance function, you have a non-zero returned amount. Now, how do we change this? Well, traditionally, the only way we've been able to basically affect the balance was through transfers. Transfers, again, very basic primitive. They define a movement of tokens from someone to someone of a certain amount, right? And this is literally the single function which all of decentralized finance is built on. Because without transfers, you can't move funds, so you can't do anything else, right? So if we could look down in the primitives, right, this is a really important one. So all of innovation in DeFi has been built on tokens, and all of those applications have been built on top of the transfer function, right? And I say on top, and I mean literally on top, right? Tokens are inside contracts, and contracts use the transfer function. So the transfer function is the basic primitive that enables everything else built on top. But why not add a new primitive, right? If such low in the stack, we only have one function, right? There's probably room to expand on that, right? And expanding at the base of the stack theoretically should enable the creation of a lot of other things on top, right? So what we did at Superfluid was imagine a new primitive. So this primitive, we call it stream, right? You still have a from and a to, but instead of defining an amount, you define a rate. We call it the flow rate. And this is the amount of tokens that will be transferred, but rather than being an instantaneous transfer from A to B, it's a continuous transfer. So funds are transferred every second. So the moment you execute this function, you initiate a stream of flow rate amount every second in perpetuity to the counterparty. And when designing this, we kept it super simple. So you have a to, a from, a flow rate. There's no duration. There's no other complicated things because it's meant to be a primitive to enable other things to be built on top. And in the case of Superfluid, this is literally built into our tokens. So Superfluid is a token standard, where your tokens can have not only the transfer function, but also the stream function. And this means using Superfluid tokens, you can then go and build on top new applications which can move funds in new ways, right? And by doing this, we kind of innovated below the stack to enable applications to be built on top, the same way applications were built on transfers. So let's talk a bit about money streaming. So money streaming is the idea of transferring funds over time. So rather than transferring in a specific moment in time, you transfer from a specific moment in time and forward in perpetuity. They create these open-ended connections between accounts that transfer money without requiring recurring transactions. So when you open a stream, you make one transaction, and after that, funds will literally move from your account to the other party's account without needing any other operations, which means the experience is really easy, right? You only make one transaction, but it's extremely powerful because you can transfer funds in the future, which you couldn't do with the transfer function. It's also an extremely fair payment term, right? So if I'm paying you every second, if I stop paying you, you can stop working. If I'm getting paid every second, I can always check if I should work today or not, right? There's no risk of not getting paid, basically, because every unit of time is paid for. At the same time, there's no delays, and we know delays in business are a huge issue, right? If you have to pay your rent on the first of the month, but your employer pays you late, you can't pay rent, right? And this causes cascading effects. In B2B, delays in payment are a huge thing. So with payments that happen every second regularly, right, and this is insured by the blockchain, all of these risks disappear. So the way we see it, streams are a pretty big deal. So this is kind of a visualization of it, right? In a traditional workplace, you're working all month, you get paid at the end, right? Same thing with pretty much any business interaction. Work all month, provide a service all month, get paid at the end. Obviously, in some cases, it's at the beginning, but the effect is the same. There's all this period of risk, because in this period, a service is being provided, but no payment is corresponding. In the case of Superfluid, every second is paid for, so the risk is effectively eliminated. And this, again, eliminating counterparty risk is a pretty big deal, right? You can now work for an anonymous company on the other side of the earth, and you know that they're paying you every second. There's no risk anymore. So what we want to do with this is move from recurring payments, right, that recur once a month, to ongoing payments that happen continuously. And this can change the way we do subscriptions, salaries, but also DAO to DAO or B2B payments, and of course, whatever else, right? This is a primitive that sits at the bottom of the stack, so you can use this to build completely new applications. So streams are a new feature for tokens, right? They can enable a lot of new applications to be built, and we are really just scratching the surface. We've been live for very little time, and there's a lot of completely new applications that people are coming up with at every hackathon we sponsor. So generally, we are a developer platform, and we're always excited to find new use cases and see and explore and push the boundaries of what this is useful for. When people started building DeFi 3 years ago, nobody thought that we would have Trader Joe today. Right? That was kind of, it took years of iterations. It's going to be similar with streams, but I think there's going to be a completely new set of applications that we'll see soon enough. So just want to give you an example. So in the case of salaries, right, imagine you're receiving your salary. What you can do with Superfluid is actually pay as you receive, because this is part of your balance, and the funds are settled every second, right? So as you're receiving your salary, you can pay for your rent, invest some money, put some money into your pocket money, whatever you want, in real time. So literally every second, a tiny amount is being transferred across your balances, right? And this really changes a bit the perception of money, right? It's not about $1,000 a month anymore. It's about $0.003 a second, right? It obviously messes with your brain a bit, but it also simplifies things, right? If you think of your normal kind of day-to-day payment schedule, it always happens on a specific day, right? So if you have to pay your rent on the 25th of the month, but your salary is paid on the 1st of the month, you need to accumulate funds for 25 days to pay that rent. If everything is happening every second, all the payment terms become condensed into your bandwidth, right? The amount of funds you receive and the amount of funds you spend in real time and completely netted. So you always know exactly how much you're keeping of this, right? And this is on an individual level, but if you think of it as a business, right? Normally they would have incoming and outgoing transfers, but they don't even leave a record on chain. You can't build a smart contract that even checks how much money is coming in, right? You can't calculate a cash flow through transfers. Using Superfluid, you literally can see from a smart contract in real time how much money you are receiving, how much money you're sending, and you can build smart contracts that manipulate those incoming and outgoing cash flows in a way that's, again, has never been possible before, right? So you can literally build business applications that allow people to, for example, receive subscriptions and based on how much they're receiving, make investments or pay their employees. And all of this happens in real time with your balance always being updated. So the combination of streaming and DeFi we call real-time finance. And obviously, it's going to take a long time to build, right? There's going to be a lot of different iterations. There's going to be failed projects. There's going to be concepts that don't make sense. There's going to be Ponzi's that destroy blockchains and all sorts of other things that might happen. But overall, it's a very big thing that we want to build, but we can't build it alone. So we're currently building an ecosystem of applications that are effectively exploring different parts of this. So for example, Ricochet is an application that allows you to stream invest. You can stream dollars in and it will automatically buy Bitcoin for you every second. And imagine you're receiving your salary and you want to invest that salary in real time. You can effectively eliminate your exposure to the dollar by receiving and sending at the same time. Diagonal and Drip are both building checkouts for subscriptions. So we hope to bring in merchants to start actually using the blockchain for commercial payments, which is something we're very excited about. And Huma Finance is an extremely exciting project, which effectively is going to allow anyone to take uncollateralized loans based on their future cash flows. So if you're getting paid a salary in a stream on the blockchain, you can take out a loan on your future cash flows, which is then paid back automatically by diverting your stream. So these are all really cool applications that we're very excited about, but obviously it's just the beginning, right? There's a lot of stuff that still needs to be built, thought of, and kind of tested, and we need to see some things blow up as well, right? That's important in experimentation. But as we build more of these applications, what we're excited to see is people receiving their salary, reinvesting that salary, paying subscriptions, these businesses that receive subscriptions, paying their employees, and all of this we call networked cash flows. So these are effectively money that moves in and out and throughout the economy in real time, reducing the need for capital by making capital faster and more efficient. And this is the ultimate vision of Superfluid, is connecting everyone, or at least the Web3 economy, in a way that makes everyone more efficient and need less capital. So Superfluid is a community-driven project. I'm proud to say we've never deployed any contracts ourselves. So Superfluid's currently deployed on 4 different networks, and all of these networks were deployed by community members. So we've generally prioritized based on community demand. So, there are people come to our Discord, I want to build an app on Arbitrum, when are you guys deploying? We would do some preparation, and then the community would deploy. So one of the things I wanted to actually talk about today is that we're now ready to deploy on Avalanche. So if you go to our Twitter account, you're going to find some instructions, and anyone can do it. So it's literally just a set of scripts you need to run, and that will deploy Superfluid on Avalanche. As I said, we never do it ourselves, so it really is up to the community. We've done the work, but if nobody wants to deploy it, it won't happen. So if you're bored and you want to do something cool, go and deploy us on Avalanche. Now, I'll show you a couple of apps that have been built on Superfluid. So Minerva is one of them. It's actually a wallet. So if you're receiving a stream, right, you're receiving your salary, you want to see it in real time, but most wallets don't support it, right? They're kind of locked in the paradigm of transfers. Minerva Wallet does, so you can open your wallet and you can see your money streaming in. Ricochet Exchange is an exchange, right? So I was saying before, you can stream dollars and then it will go to the market and swap and buy for you automatically. So if you're receiving your salary, you can reinvest it in real time. Diagonal is building this really cool checkout for businesses. Some of the really cool applications really are on the fact that you're on chain, right? If you are paying a business on chain, it means that that business now has your Ether wallet, right? And by having your Ethereum wallet, they can send you all sorts of different things. Their initial idea is to have loyalty programs in the form of NFTs, but in the future, they could have things like referrals. They could use this on-chain payments to be the collateral for loans, right? So there's all sorts of applications that can be built once we start bringing business cash flows on-chain. And then I wanted to actually make a shout out to a hackathon project from ETH Amsterdam. So this is called Celery. We have the builder in the room over there. Woohoo! So Celery was one of our winners at ETH Amsterdam, and it's a really, really cool application because it's extremely simple. You can go and check the smart contract. It's really easy to understand. What it does is it creates like a Treasury smart contract, which is used to send streams to employees. These streams are NFTs, which means the receiver can transfer them. You know, if they want to change account or they want to move from a ledger to a hot wallet, they can do that by simply transferring the NFTs. But it also means that the receiver of these streams, the receiver of these salaries, can do some other things with lending protocols. So they built a very simple implementation which allows the salary receiver to sell their salary with an expiry date in exchange for upfront cash. So you're receiving, let's say, $3,000 a month, right? Every second a tiny bit. But you want to buy something. You want to go out and maybe put down your money for a house, right? So what you do is you take your NFT, you assign it an expiry date, and you can sell it on OpenSea to anyone who wants to buy it. You get cash up front. 30 days later, you get your salary back. And in the meantime, an investor made a small spread, right? This was built in probably 24 hours. And it works. And you can go and see on OpenSea, you can actually go and buy some of the testnet NFTs, which were built. So again, because of how we built this so low in the stack, right? This is literally a function on the token. It's very easy to understand. It's very easy to build with. And it's very easy to build on top of because it really is just another function of the token. So what can you do with it today? Well, first of all, obviously, go right now, call your employer and tell them you want to get paid every second, right? There's no way you're going to work 30 days and get paid at the end, right? That's like last century stuff. And obviously build, right? As I said, there's a lot of stuff to be built. There's a lot of ideas on our Discord. People are discussing new ideas every day. There's a lot of different things that can be built. And where we get really excited is on ideas that bring in business opportunities, right? So far, DeFi has all been about speculation. It's all been about swapping dog coins for food coins, right? But what we really need is to bring salaries, subscriptions, business income, B2B payments, and then use all of those with the underlying cash flows to build things like trade finance. This is a completely new and unexplored vertical for DeFi that we are extremely excited to see a lot of developments in our ecosystem about. So yeah, come and build with us. And obviously, if you're so inclined, you can also deploy us. So check out our Twitter channel. There's instructions there. It takes probably 5 minutes, and you become a part of the history of Superfluid deploying on Avalanche. So with Superfluid, we want to create a world with no friction, where money flows in real time from one account to another every second without needing users to make repeated transactions, without needing intermediaries to pull money from your account, and in a way that increases capital efficiency and brings us forward in the way we experience money. So come and build with us. If you fire him but you forget to stop the stream, well, right. Well, I mean, if you fire someone and you forget to close the stream, then, tough luck. It's like now. I mean, if you fire someone and then you pay them an extra month, what do? You call them up and ask for the money back, right?
This is just but there could be a lot of other edge cases that, for example, if you receive the service, usually, let's take an example of this or service. Could you imagine, or maybe that's another layer of that or something?
Exactly. I mean, ultimately, we are not trying to solve a specific business or commercial issue, right? We are trying to just build a primitive, right? A lot of stuff can be solved on top, right? For example, one of the problems that people always come up with is, but in a subscription, if people pay by the second, they can close the stream anytime, which means they can subscribe for just one day, right? And obviously, there's a lot of different ways to solve for that, but the protocol can't solve for those problems, right? Those are things that need to be built on top.
And can I set the interval myself until the second, or do every third day?
So the protocol is actually built to be extendable, and that is not impossible. But the more you think about it, the more you will realize that actually by the second is better. It's cheaper, it's more capital efficient. It doesn't require users to lock up almost any funds, right? So when you use Superfluid, you don't need to have almost any money in your account, right? I could be receiving $1,000 from him, I'm streaming $1,000 to him, and have $0 in my account. If it were 3-day settlement, I would need to have at least 3 days of money in my account, which would make it less capital efficient, right? So while it seems like a stretch to imagine the world moving to second-by-second payments, and I agree with you, it sounds crazy, it actually makes a ton of sense.
So there's no ledger at all? There's no ledger of transaction at each second?
No, it's all settled inside the contract.
Puzzles me because how would you do reconciliations? If you don't have a ledger, you can't trace back where money came from.
You can trace back everything. In fact, you can actually trace it back from a contract even. It's all on chain.
You store each transaction.
No. So you kind of have to. Accountants hate us. Let's start from that, okay? Because it definitely messes with the way accounting has been done so far, right? Because accounting is always transaction by transaction. In this case, you have to basically understand that every second money has moved, but you have to create your own record of it. If a stream was open, money moved. There's no doubt, right? But we don't necessarily make a ledger entry. But you could easily build a program that makes ledger entries every second. But again, accountants hate us.
You're kind of getting into my questioning this, how does it work? Gas and storing everything on chain, it's running every second.
So that's a great question. I'll try and give a concise answer, but I usually fail. So basically, what we built is a token standard. And the reason we built a token standard is that otherwise there would be no way for us to change the rules of settlement. The rules of settlement effectively come from the way we transfer money. When you transfer money, if you enshrine the transfer function as the only way to transfer money, then it's impossible to stream, because you would have to call the transfer function every block and effectively bankrupt yourself. In the case of Superfluid, streams are built as a function of the contract, and this allows us to change the way the balance is returned to the user. So when you query the balance, it doesn't look at the transfers or anything like that. What it does is it calculates based on the current time, based on when you open your streams, based on your previous interactions, your current timestamp, and then the next block you query it again, and it's a different value, right? And that happens in sync for the sender and receiver, so it's always completely even.
This reminds me that I built it's based on the transactions per second, but actually it's the transactions per block, right?
Yes.
So it's not per second, it's kind of the faster blocks, the more granular we can express the flow.
Yes. So the technical way to say this would be that the streams are accounted by the second, but settled by the block. Yeah, correct. And as you said, right, streaming has been around in the crypto space for a while, right? There's different applications that have built streaming for staking rewards, for even vesting contracts. It's been around for a while. It's not a new thing. What we bring to the table is putting it down as a primitive, because then it means others can build on top of it, right? Instead of a feature of an application, it's a feature of the token itself, which means streams become interoperable, right? They become easier to read, and they have an API, right? While before they were a part of an application with a specific purpose and a specific implementation. Like this, they become interoperable.
One question, are your contracts compatible with ERC20? You can just multiple inheritance, I just inherit, and then have my stream.
Exactly. Our tokens are all ERC20 compatible, so they work everywhere in DeFi. On top of that, you have streams. So it's like an extension.
So like state what you have are variables stream.
So you want to earn yield as you stream, right? Yeah. So the protocol doesn't. The protocol is trying to, basically Superfluid has 0 dependencies, right? And we build it like that because when you have dependencies, stuff breaks. But you can, I'm not going to say easily because it's not easy, but you can theoretically build a staking pool where you can withdraw in a stream. The accounting is fairly complex. Building applications where everything is moving every second is more complex than building applications where things don't move. But it's possible. There's people in our ecosystem working on it. And actually, we plan to open source kind of reference implementation of what we call a super pool, which is like a generic vault where you can stream money out. So I think that's something we'll see in the future. So basically, people have 0 money, like 0 exposure to the dollar, right? You just put your money in the lending pool, stream it out, pay your expenses, 0 balance. So yeah, that's where we're going.
Is it possible, like in the primitive, to set that the flow changes? Like, let's say, night shifts are double the money, or something like this?
So again, Superfluid is built to be modular. So it's actually built to enable multiple, we call them agreements. Streaming is one of the agreements. It is possible to create others. The problem with variable flows is that if they're not indexing to some sort of global variable, they're not very scalable. And sometimes they create systemic risk. So it's something we've looked a lot at, right, for different applications. One thing that will be in the protocol at some point, possibly not this year, is actually what we call the Decaying flow agreement, which will look like isotopic decaying flow, right? So that's something that will be possible. There are other ideas in our community. Ultimately, the agreement framework is open source. Anybody can write one, but it's pretty complicated. So, well, we don't have a consensus number. Like, we're deployed on top of blockchains, so it really depends on the blockchain itself, right? Like, Avalanche is faster than Ethereum, so in the case of Avalanche, everything's faster. Like, we don't build our own blockchain. The protocol doesn't guarantee that funds will be transferred in the next block. It only guarantees that funds are transferred now. So you can open a stream with a zero balance, technically. But then the next block, what will happen is that you will get liquidated and your stream will be closed. So there's no locks in the sense that you don't have to put up a full month of a stream, for example. But you do have to put up 4 hours of streaming. So that's the trick. By putting up 4 hours, that's enough for the protocol to ensure that if you run out of funds, the protocol has time to close your stream. Does that make sense? So obviously, the smart contract can't guarantee money that's not there, right? So we have this 4-hour minimum.
Do you take any fees, or is the user only paying the regular time fees on the blockchain? Do you plan on taking any fees or money?
We don't take any fees. I can't talk too much about future because, to be honest, okay, fees are not in the roadmap at any point, but our roadmap is not forever in the future. So, I don't know forever in the future what will happen. And at some point, Superfluid will be, beyond my control, so I can't speak to it. But it's nowhere in our existing roadmap. And one of the reasons for that is actually that fees would make it extremely complicated to build on top of, because there would be all sorts of extra considerations you'd need to make. But it's all the applications built on Superfluid so far all charge fees, and it's actually a pretty good business model because if you're building a checkout, for example, you can take off 2%. You're still way cheaper than fiat payment processors, and you have recurring revenues, right? Which is pretty good for a crypto application.
I wanted to ask, because you do everything with population in real time, can I assume that if I do a normal ERC20 function like transfer, I guess it's going to cost more gas because you have to check all the open streams on how much is still available, do some math stuff there?
Yeah, it is slightly more expensive to transfer.
Do you know,
I think it's about 100K gas at the moment.
So many streams you have open or something?
No, it doesn't. Okay, streams are actually extremely scalable. Like you can have a million streams and it doesn't affect the balance calculation because you don't check them individually. I can show you the code afterwards if you want. But yeah, streams are super scalable. You can have literally any number of incoming, outgoing streams and it doesn't matter. But other agreements are less scalable. So as I said before, streaming is just one of our agreements. The other agreements aren't necessarily as scalable because they're less fungible, technically. So they do impact the transfer cost a bit, but it's not insane.
So it's not intended as a general replacement for my USDT, for example. It's like I have a USDT and then I transfer it to Superfluid USDT just for the streaming. But
we would recommend, well, I mean, the market will decide, right? We generally think it is an advancement compared to normal tokens. Obviously, complexity comes with drawbacks, right? But I would also argue that if in 3 years we're still afraid of building complex things because they cost more gas, then we failed as an industry. Like, we have to be able to expand block space so that we can support more complex applications. And I think this is obviously, I mean, I'm biased, but I do think it is something that deserves to cost more and is worth building even though it adds costs.
Do you have PID standard distinction?
Not at the moment, no. At the moment, it's just our thing. But a lot of people ask that, so I don't exclude we'll do it in the future. There might be kind of future versions of the protocol that are more easily standardizable as well, so we'll see. I think there was something over here. No. Okay.
what's the next for this
Our path to profitability, we don't really have one. We're lucky to have investors that believe that what we're doing is worthwhile and have funded us so far. And we hope to keep finding investors who think what we're doing is worthwhile and will keep funding us. Ultimately, if what we're building is valuable, I believe there will always be someone who wants to be a part of that and will, in some shape or form, want to invest in it. Our ultimately our goal is to build an ecosystem, and the applications in that ecosystem almost kind of, by common sense, want a stake in the network that is processing those payments, right? So if you think of most Ethereum companies have a stake in Ethereum, right? Most Avalanche companies have a stake of Avax, right? The reason they do that is beyond financial, right? It's more strategic, right? And obviously that's something in traditional finance you don't do as much, right? You don't see kind of businesses taking a stake in a bank. But in crypto we see it all the time because it's so frictionless and easy, and there's different kinds of incentives. So I expect we'll see, that's more or less how we expect it to play out. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Again, it was the last talk.